A skip, a hop, skip, hop, and then don't stop. A hip, hop, skop, and a bop, bop, a weep, bop, beep, bop, 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 bada beep, bada beep, bada boogity beat.
We don't have any announcements, do we?
I'm 6'1" and I'm tons of fun. Sorry, I had to say that one.
Press 2T.
Hello, and welcome to the Interstate Gamers Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin, a.k.a. K-Slugs.
My name is Peter, a.k.a. A Deal For Real. And I'm also your host.
Well, welcome, everyone, to the 34th episode and the 27th game review for the Interstate Gamers Podcast. I hope you've all been enjoying Season 3 this far. Sorry this one came out a little bit later than expected. We had some July 4th / wedding shenanigans to, kind of handle. So we were both kind of busy during this time and really we didn't really have time to record. So now we are recording and now you are listening to this episode. So
yeah, dude, that wedding was great though.
Yeah, wasn't it? It was just so magical. You remember that one thing happened?
Oh yeah, we're like, what was it like? There was a pastor or someone who what did he say? Or
he said, "You may now kiss the
bride." Yeah,
the bride. Yeah, that.
Yeah,
okay, yeah, that happened.
I was in tears, man.
Yeah,
so moving.
Yeah. Anyway, last episode we discussed Age of Empires 2, a game we were surprisingly on the same page for. I wasn't expecting that, but I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed that game. And so now the question begs, Peter.
Yeah.
What are we reviewing this week?
Well, we are reviewing a game that I like to call Yooka-Laylee.
Do you like to call it that, or do other people also like to call it ukulele?
I think most people do, but I'm all about me today. Taking some me time for once in this show. Yooka-Laylee is I would imagine a lot of our listeners have probably heard of it because it caused quite a stir when it came out in 2017. It was highly anticipated, a spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. Produced by Playtonic Games, published by Team 17. Playtonic is composed of many former members of Rare, the company we all know and love for Donkey Kong Country, Donkey Kong 64, Banjo-Kazooie, of course, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Viva Pinata, my favorite game of all time.
Right.
The list goes on. But yeah, so this was a game that was funded by Kickstarter. Actually, it shattered a bunch of records, I found out.
It did. It was huge.
It made its initial goal of £175,000 British pounds in 40 minutes from launch. And then it went on to get a total of 2.1 million pounds in funding from 80,000 backers. I think it broke the record for the game that raised the most money in the first period of time from the start of the campaign, and then it broke the record for total amount for a game and all this stuff.
That's insane.
Yeah. The question is though, was it worth it? And Kevin and I are here to to talk about that one.
Yeah.
I did not play this game until recently, but I did beat it. Unlike Age of Empires, which I definitely did not beat. This one I did. I did not 100% it, though. But you played this game around the time it came out, I believe. Is that right?
I did. So I've owned it since it came out, day one. I was super excited to play it, but it came out during the heat of finals one year, and I was just swamped, so I didn't really have enough time to play it, and I never really got around to finishing it, so I was glad I was able to revisit the game this past week, and we'll have to see how I view it and how I rate it, it being a Rare game and me being a Rare fan. That'd be an interesting episode, I think.
Not to mention you are also a professional Banjo-Kazooie streamer and speedrunner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this will be a pretty interesting episode.
Yeah, I think we're both gonna have a lot of thoughts, if I were to guess.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I certainly do. My page in my notebook is full F.
Full F.
Full F.
Well, I'm excited, man.
Me too. So before we get into the gameplay, I will give the basic overview of how the game works. For anyone who's played Banjo-Kazooie, it's pretty much like that. For those who haven't, Yooka-Laylee is a 3D platforming game that is also a collectathon. That means that in each world, there are 5 large worlds, each of which has a whole bunch of collectibles, but the most important are called pages, which for Banjo-Kazooie fans is the equivalent of jiggies. Pages are these important collectibles that you get by doing like little challenges in each area. And you can also find some pages on the overworld, but not as many. And these pages are kind of currency, where the more that you collect, the more new worlds you can open up for yourself, and also the more times you can expand existing worlds. You can only expand each world once, but it costs you some pages to do so. So the game kind of encourages you, and actually it tells you verbatim, probably too many times at the beginning of the game, like, oh, you can use your pages to expand or to explore. Expand, explore. Expand, explore. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I can expand or explore. But they did want to emphasize that freedom that the player can have, which actually I found was a pretty cool part of the game. But you embark on this quest to retrieve these pages because they were stolen from Laylee, the Bat's character. And she has some important book. It's never really made clear like what this book is all about, but it's very, very important and magical or something. And Capital B, who is a evil
bitch
B character, capital bitch, capital B word. He steals these pages and he's like, "Oh, my company is gonna use these magical pages from this book to rewrite the universe." And what he writes it to, we never find out. He never tells us. But that's kind of the story. Yooka, the chameleon lizard, I guess chameleon.
Yeah, he's a chameleon.
And Laylee the bat engage on this, or whatever. I've overexplained it. That's how the game works. Do you have anything to add to that?
I don't think I do, man. I think you explained it pretty well.
Heck yeah, that's always my goal.
Well, without further ado, I guess we'll get into it. I would like to start off with the gameplay, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely.
And before I even say that, I found this game very difficult to rate. And we'll all find out why, but man, Peter and I have discussed a little bit before this episode what our thoughts were on the game. And man, it's like I was telling you earlier, it's almost as if they didn't even hire QA testers for this game. Like, I really wanted to like the game, but the gameplay is by far the worst aspect of the game. It's actually really sad how bad the gameplay is, but things don't feel fully fleshed out. Animation and movements feel kind of weird.
Yeah.
Especially some moves. The physics is just kind of odd. And dude, it's freaking 2016 at the time of this game. People have figured out how to make a camera in a 3D open world game.
Yeah.
A long ass time ago. Like,
yeah.
It's so bad in this game. I'm like, dude, how have you still not figured it? Like, it's forgivable in Banjo, but in this game, it's not forgivable. And it's just like, why is this camera bad? And it's kind of weird because, like, you're trying to rotate the camera on the right stick, but if you move at the same time, the camera locks. And I'm just like...
Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's really weird.
I noticed the camera was locking at weird times. I figured there was always just some sort of, like, wall that I couldn't see at the moment that was blocking the camera, which I think that is the case most of the time, but sometimes it does just kind of lock up weird.
Yeah, that's a thing too, is like if it's against a wall, it's like, oh, don't want to see through the wall.
Yeah.
So they just like don't let you move the camera.
The camera stops moving in a way that feels like unnatural too. Like it's not obvious that it's not moving because there's a wall there. So I'm like, why isn't the camera moving? And then I have to pivot it the other way. I'm like, oh, this because there's a wall there.
Yeah.
What's weird is that they actually released a patch for the game not too terribly long after it came out that improved the gameplay, or the controls at least, and the camera from the base game. And I'm here playing the Switch version, by the way, and you're playing the Xbox, I believe?
Yes.
Version. Yeah, so we're playing those versions, and like the Switch version, day one, because it came out later, it did have the patches and whatever. But still, like, I had these complaints, so I can only imagine what it was like before these patches that were apparently pretty substantial.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what the crap, man? Like,
yeah, I remember when everybody was like harping on them really bad for that, and they like, I think they even came out and gave a public apology for it or whatever, and came out with some fixes.
Yeah.
And it was like, for the first full year, is nothing but fixes and stuff like that. And I think they might have come out with like some extra content, but at that point, the damage was already done. And I don't think they really fixed it in a great way. obviously, since you experienced the same issues, so it's just kind of like, man, it's just really sad. Just really sad.
I want to go into a little more detail on the camera and controls. The biggest problem I had with the camera is that it would get like hung up on the smallest little bits of geometry in the level. Like if you're walking in, say, Tribal Stack Tropics, the first level that's very, jungle themed. If you're walking in an area that has like some little plants and foliage and rocks and stuff, like the camera will kind of stutter as you're walking past those objects because it has to like negotiate with itself how to handle it or something.
Yeah.
And it's like just always constantly just zooming in and out like very subtly and very quickly, but it's super noticeable. And it's just like, it just makes the game feel choppy.
Yeah.
And then you combine that with controls that pretty much what you said, like generally feel a little janky or like sometimes hitboxes or like collision boxes feel unclear.
Yeah, it's like they made the animations and like the character movement separate, and this is the case probably for a lot of games, but they made that separate from the level, but it doesn't integrate with the level very well. So like navigating through the level with these movements are just like weird. You're like, yeah, I guess this works.
Like it just sucks because this team, I mean, not exactly this team, of course, many people on this team have such a great pedigree from games in the past. Like even Banjo-Kazooie, which I haven't played nearly as much as you, so I'm a little more hesitant to say this, but like from when I played Banjo, like it just felt more crisp.
Right.
And the camera didn't, get hung up on every little thing. And it's like, why in 2017, 16, whatever, are you still having these problems?
Right. One thing I did kind of notice and made the comparison of is like, it does feel a little bit better in Banjo, but at the same time, Banjo doesn't have all of these crazy like moves. Like Banjo's movement is very, actually crazily enough, I think it's more realistic than Yooka-Laylee.
Yeah.
Like Yooka-Laylee, you jump like super high and you can float like super long and do these weird like animation and moves that like kind of defy what physics to be. And Banjo kind of plays a little bit more along the lines. Like obviously Banjo is like being carried by Kazooie in his backpack at some point, but it feels a lot more natural and almost like the gravity is like more realistic.
Yeah. I do want to talk about the moves though, because I think that as janky as the gameplay can feel to me, I don't think it's like 1000% terrible.
Yeah.
And I actually think that like some of the moves they have like are actually pretty satisfying to use at times. Yeah. So the way that the moves work is that in each level you'll find a snake called Trouser, which is a great name. For 18 plus humor related reasons. And Trouser will sell you moves that you can buy with quills, which are like the little, what's the equivalent? They're the equivalent to notes in Banjo-Kazooie. So like kind of like coins basically, they're scattered around the level. But you can buy moves that are offensive or defensive or mobility related. And there's a lot of them. There's like, like 18 or 20 or so. It takes a couple screens to scroll through and look at all of them.
Yeah.
But I did kind of like the fact that you can double jump. I thought that was fun. The flying feels pretty cumbersome, but it's not something you're supposed to do all the time, so I don't think it has to feel like perfect. Like they probably made it like not so perfect so that you wouldn't abuse it or something, which is another debate altogether.
Yeah, it's like that move, like the one where, are you talking about the one where you can like chunk Laylee up in the air?
Yeah.
And, yeah, that one is like, it pretty much allows you to do anything in every level.
Yeah.
But like the flying is so hard to control. You're just like, what? I can't land where I want to.
Yeah, I liked using it though, just for generally like getting from one part of the level to another. But you absolutely cannot do like precise landings and stuff with it, and like you can't make tight turns.
Right.
I guess it is kind of game breaking, but like the way that I played the game, I kind of saved that for last. So like, it didn't feel like it cheapened the whole game. And I mentioned this because it's a complaint that I've seen a bit when doing my research. Other types of moves, Laylee has some like sonic wave really type cool moves. Like she can attack with them and stun enemies. You can use them, or she can use her sonics to create a shield when you're rolling around, which is pretty useful. Not too many occasions I felt like I need to use that, but it's there. But actually, I feel like I told you this. when I was kind of getting into the game for the first time, I was like, you know what? Now that I've gotten some moves, I actually feel a lot better about this game. Like, it does feel pretty satisfying, and I have to give it some credit for that.
Yeah, I agree. Some of the moves are really cool and really fun to use. Like, I love using the sonar moves. I think Laylee's the coolest character by far. Yooka, I think, is pretty lackluster. He doesn't really do a lot.
Yeah.
But there are some really fun moves to use. It's just some of the moves were like, man, just really just made the game like a lot easier.
Yeah.
Or too easy, or just felt weird to use or implement. But yeah, for the most part, it's pretty good. You drain power by using these moves. Mm-hmm. And I kind of hated the fact, not hated, but where you get to roll around. You know what I'm talking about? As Yooka and Laylee, where they're like rolling through.
Yeah.
I was kind of sad that costs a lot of power, because I felt like that just made the movement go by so much faster. It would have made it feel more crisp if like it didn't require so much power to use. I mean, it doesn't require a whole lot, but still, power gets pretty important at some moments of the game. So it's just kind of like you'd rather not use it. And
there's so many big open spaces in all the levels that like you want to use it all the time.
Exactly.
And there's even a tonic, and a tonic is basically a temporary, or not temporary. What's the best way to start with this? In each level, there's a character called Vendi who can give you tonics, which you can unlock in various ways. And tonics are basically little like buffs that you can add to your characters.
Yeah.
You can only have one at a time, though.
Right.
And one of them is specifically your roll move will use less energy. And it's like, okay, maybe that should just be the game. You know?
Yeah.
For the reasons that we've talked about.
Yeah, like it wasn't Banjo, where you could just Talon Trot everywhere.
Yeah.
But some of the mini games, I want to get into the mini games. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of the mini games are stupid and aren't properly tested. Like, I don't know how you felt about this one, but the shitty minecart game that's like terribly implemented, where like the two different speeds, I guess 3 different speeds that you have, normal, fast, and slow, they have like super long input or IASA frames, however you say that. You can't do anything basically for a long time when changing the speed.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculously dumb.
Well, I mean, that's by design though, so that, I mean, it makes you think way more about whether you need to speed up or slow down, because once you do it, you're committing for like 3 seconds.
Right, but I've always been of the opinion that you don't make games difficult based upon how bad your character moves, right? I think you should make the game difficult based, like, the challenges that are presented in front of you, instead of constraining the user. I don't know, this sound is super technical right now, but it just didn't feel natural. And some of the levels, like, it was just really annoying, where they clearly wanted you to make some tight window, and you're just like, this is not a game to be making a tight window. And like it just did not, especially on Casino level, the minecart game was just ridiculously dumb. Like, I wish I could have streamed it and like point out all the flaws of that level, because I can name them one by one what's wrong with like each design flaw, but I won't go too much into that. But I wanted to know, what are some of the mini games that either maybe you loved all the mini games, or maybe you hated some of them, but I want to know your opinion on the mini games.
I disliked most of them. Funnily enough, I actually did like the minecart ones, which is weird, because at first I did not like it, and then it kind of grew on me once I got used to the way that like the speed up and slow down works and all that stuff. I still think like it pales in comparison in terms of like gameplay quality to, you know, the ones from Donkey Kong Country, which is what they were paying homage to.
Yes.
Like, that just feels so much crisper.
Yes.
But I think that a strength of it was how they, and I feel weird giving Capital Casino a compliment, but I feel like the boss of that level is actually really creative, because the gimmick of that whole level is that rather than getting pages directly, you beat minigames and get tokens and then go trade those for pages, which I think is convoluted and kind of stupid, but it does create this cool opportunity where Kartos, the minecart character, who I love, by the way, is about to give you a pagey. And then this fucking giant-ass security robot rolls up behind you or in front of you and is like, hey, only a casino staff can give pages. And then that's when the boss fight begins. And like there's no other boss or enemy or anything in the whole game like that. And I was like, oh, this is actually really cool.
Yeah.
And I found that like the timing challenges for the boss in particular was like actually pretty fun. Frustrating for sure. It took me several tries to do it right, but it didn't feel like as dumb as some other stuff in the game. Some stuff that I did think was dumb was like the little arcade mini games that are hosted by Rextro, because I mean they're fine, but they just go on way too long, I think.
Yeah, and I don't know. I kind of came into it like at Casino, like I got back into, because I left at Casino because I probably said, "Wow, this level is dumb. I don't want to play this anymore," and then didn't play it for years later until now. I picked up on Casino. I'm like, "Oh God, this level's dumb." And so I played Rextro's, I guess the auto scroll game where you have to jump over stuff. It's very simple, right? Yeah. But somehow they screwed that up in that, like, if you can die multiple consecutive times over and over again upon spawn, like, you just spawn and then you die and then you spawn again and you die because you're trying to hit A to like jump, but you're really dying and then like you spawn again like immediately. I'm just like, oh my God, how did you screw this up? It's a simple concept. Yeah. It's just things like that. It's just like a proper QA tester would have just gone through and been like, hey, you guys need to fix this. But it's almost as if like they either didn't take the time to do that or just didn't have that in the plans at all, or maybe just their QA testers were bad. I don't want to hate on them, but you gotta take care of that stuff.
Yeah. Although I think that like the mini games and stuff like that were generally not great. Another compliment that I want to pay is that I didn't feel like the challenges to get the pages started to feel like too repetitive over the course of the game. Like they didn't like ever blatantly recycle stuff, at least not to the extent that I was like, oh, it's this song and dance again. Which is pretty impressive because you have to collect 100 before you can even go fight Capital B.
Right.
So, like, although the game itself isn't terribly fun, at least it didn't feel like the most repetitive thing in the world, to me, personally.
Right. And I think that's one thing that their forte is, and what they knew was their forte, was that they know how to do collectibles. Yeah. Every collectible was different. It's exactly how Banjo was. Like, it was just like every Jiggy is in a different spot, and so is every Pagey. While I don't know. I like the Jiggies better than Pagies. It could be biased, but also, did you notice that the feathers were like 2D textures? I
that was like one of the very first things I noticed.
It's like, okay. All right. I guess that makes sense because feathers are really thin, but you could still make feathers. But whatever. That's a very nitpicky thing. But yeah, no, I think they did a really good job in terms of collectibles. It made you explore the level really well, and like everything felt different. Yeah.
The last significant point I have for gameplay, and I know we're kind of going long in this section, but boy howdy, there's a lot to talk about. Yeah. What do you think of the transformations, which have been important in the Banjo-Kazooie games?
They kind of suck. They're slow. All of them are slow, and I don't know why that's the case. Like, I don't know why a helicopter has to be that god-awfully slow, or I don't know. I mean, they're interesting and fun, right? The helicopter's cool, and when I first transformed, I was like, all right, here we go. Yeah. But it was so damn slow that I never wanted to use it because the level is massive, and I just didn't want to go all the way back. And honestly, I had to because that's just the nature of the level. You have to go back and get the helicopter, figure out where you need it, go back and but it's just like, why is it so slow? Same thing with the Petunia on the first level, and then the ship in the Galleon Galaxy.
Yeah, at least the ship has like a little boost thing you can just hold down, but still not great.
Still not very fast. It did have 3 different kinds of powers or whatever, so I thought it was pretty neat.
Yeah. I did like the snowplow a decent amount from the second world. I thought that was actually pretty neat.
Yeah, that was my favorite one, for sure. Yeah.
I am baffled, though, by... well, first of all, I'm baffled that the Petunia made it at all, because that shit is whack. But also, that is in the very first level, and I was like, oh, are all the transformations going to be like this? Fuck that. Yeah. But then the very next one has my favorite transformation. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess they just had this one, like, particularly bad one, but, like, why even... I don't know.
The petunia was so bad. It was so useless. You just pollinate flowers. And I know that's like, ooh, but...
Ooh!
They made it sound like ooh, too, in the game. There were a lot of sexual references in the game, which I found to be pretty funny.
Yeah. Oh, I do want to shout out the piranha transformation, though, from the marshy maze. I don't remember the name of it, but the third level, that's the marshy maze. I thought the piranha transformation was actually pretty sick.
Yeah, piranha one, that was my favorite level, was the swamp level. I was like really getting into the game after that one. I was like, oh yeah, this game's sick. And then like I think after that it started. Once I got to Casino, man, maybe Casino is just like the perspective ruiner.
It might be. Casino is pretty bad. It's definitely like the low point of the whole game for me.
Right. But I wanted to know, did you have any problems with lag?
It was the boss of the second world, which is hidden in the area that you get after expanding it. There's a lot of like flame and particle effects that go on, and there's one point where it was just tremendously bad lag. And I was like, dude, what the fuck? This is a game... I mean, I know that the Switch is underpowered, but like, come on, man. Like, this is ridiculous. You need to optimize your visual effects.
Yeah, it happened in... This is actually a tragic story. It happened a lot in my game, but I was able to keep trucking. Like at random points would the game just like completely drop all the frames, and I would just randomly skip to another point in the game. It didn't happen like super often, but it happened often enough for it to be annoying. Like
a little hiccup is what you're talking about?
Yeah.
I had those too, actually, but I also get those on Stardew Valley, so I thought it might be like a Switch thing.
No, I think it's definitely the game. But tragically enough, when I'm fighting Capital B, I'm like about to beat him, and my game froze and just locked up, and I couldn't do anything.
Now that has never happened to me.
I'm sad to inform the fans that I have not beaten Yooka-Laylee, because in that moment, I hated the game that much that I don't ever want to play it ever again. How could they do that to me? Capital B, like, once you understand, like, what he does is not too bad, but I'm just like, all right, I get the gist of Capital B's fight. I think I'm done. With this game.
Yeah, that fight takes forever. I guess I was going to talk about this in content, but might as well, we're on the topic. That fight is very difficult for me. I was kind of hoping it would be difficult because the rest of the game was pretty easy, and I was not disappointed. It's an endurance match. You don't get any health at all during the run of the game, or the run of the battle.
Yeah.
And he keeps changing up the pattern on you. So definitely took me like an hour to beat Capital B. Once I did, though, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment.
And integrity.
As EA calls it. Integrity. But yeah, like, that battle for me was just the point where like all of the flaws in the gameplay and the camera just, hit me right in the face. Like this is the worst time for these flaws to be so apparent, but here they are, and this is the game, and it's like, well,
yeah, there was that one really long part. I think I finally understood what they wanted you to do, but when you're like trying to shoot Capital B with the ice thing, balls, I don't know what to call them. I would like jump and try to shoot the ice balls at him, but you're supposed to like get to a point where you dodge 3 of them and then you just shoot a bunch of them at him. But I would just run around for an extremely long time. I'd just be like, why is this taking so long?
Yeah, I would try to like stand still and use the little aiming mode to shoot at him, but I hadn't picked up on like the 3 attack pattern yet. So I kept getting hit, and I was like, well, fuck this. So then I started jumping and shooting in the air, which I actually got pretty good at. But then after I got good at that, I realized what I was supposed to do, but I was like, I'm not going to change the game plan by this point. Like, it's working for me, so I'll just do it.
It was very reminiscent of Gruntilda fight. Very reminiscent. Like, I was like, oh, I see what you're doing there.
Yeah.
So maybe that was why it was easier for me to pick up on those things, because it felt a lot like that. I was like, okay, here's the next phase, and he's going to do this thing. Oh, look, I'm shooting at him in the air. What a surprise. Yeah. Anyway, I think we've talked about gameplay long enough, but I think it was also the most important thing to talk about.
I agree, man. Having said all of this nonsense, do you want to give your score first?
I do. You're going to love my score, because I had to do it. Mm-hmm. It was low enough to where I could do this, and I saw the opportunity, so I gave it a hot fresh, sexy 69.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I'm pretty much on the same page, actually. I gave gameplay a 70.
All right, wow.
Which, like, isn't a terrible score, really. Like,
no.
Because there's, like, the game does some things well and some things poorly, and it just kind of comes out to a 70, I feel.
It's kind of funny how we do this. We have C-rated games for, like, gameplay and stuff like that, and we just shit on them. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, not too bad.
Yeah.
But it's like we do nothing but, like, talk to... We made a few compliments here and there, but most of it was just like, oh, this sucks. It's about a 70.
Yeah. Well, academically, a 70 is a D, so there's some, like, precedent for that.
Right. Barely like, this one... So if it was high school, it didn't pass for me, but it's not high school, so it's all right. Not great. Anyway, moving on to everyone's favorite section, aesthetics. So from here on out, it's going to get pretty weird for me because I'm not really sure how to rate them. But I'm going to kind of rely on what you say and what I say, and perhaps I change some things and perhaps I don't. So anyway, I would like for you to start out on visuals since I started out on gameplay.
Sounds good to me, man. So visuals, I think the character designs are definitely the biggest visual selling point of the game, in that Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie were very, very heavy on, like, having memorable characters that were wacky and goofy, and they, did and said weird things. And this game definitely, like, tries its hardest to keep that up. And I actually think it does a pretty good job. I enjoyed a lot of the character designs, probably most of them, actually, I enjoyed. Capital B is great. I do like Yooka-Laylee's designs. I feel like they're a little less distinctive, maybe, than Banjo and Kazooie.
I
mean, but I feel bad, like, comparing everything to Banjo-Kazooie, but, like, this game was made to be compared to Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah,
like,
they kind of did that to themselves.
Yeah. But I think they're definitely good designs. They might not be great, but they're good. I do like the design of Vendy. We talked about this the other night. You think she's like a SpongeBob, pretty much.
Oh, God. She's so horrendous.
I just think she's thick. No, I do think Vendy is a cool design. You guys can Google Vendy. Vendi.
Please Google Vendy.
Definitely turn on your safe search. I'm just kidding. I don't... that probably exists, but I haven't seen it.
Oh, God.
But yeah, I pretty much enjoy the character designs, and I want to hear what you think about that.
Okay, I would say that the character designs, I'm probably not as hype on them as you are, because Vendy is god-awful, in my opinion. Like, Vendy is terrible. And there are some of them that are also pretty, like the pigs, the pig knights or whatever, they're pretty bad. But that's just my personal...
Bad? Like, what do you mean by that?
Their faces look so, like, scrunched up. Like they're constipated, or, like, it's just... I don't know. There's this really old religious cartoon that I used to watch. It reminded me of these character models' faces. And I was just like, why is this happening? Like, I hated them then, and then, like, seeing it in this game, I guess, maybe triggered something in for me. But, like, a lot of people, when they were releasing these characters, because they would, like, be like, oh, here's such and such character, and they would explain it before the game came out. Everybody dogged on Vendy, and I was on that dogging train. I was like, are you kidding me? This is one of the characters? I was like, whatever. I'm sure the rest of the game's fine. Turns out, whatever, it's a little bit different. But I think a lot of people don't like Vendy. But Yooka-Laylee do look pretty good. Trouser is my favorite.
Trouser's awesome, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other character models that are really good or very reminiscent of Banjo and Kazooie. Like you said, I don't think it quite holds up to those standards, but you could see the spirit in them, right? And they did the best they could to make it the same feel. But I don't think it quite achieves that, but it's not horrible. Some of them are. Like Vendy, I'm sorry. I know I disagree with you, but anyway, not to harp on Vendy too much. I do think the levels, they look pretty good. I really enjoyed the way they look, despite what you think about the design of them in terms of relevancy to the gameplay. I think they look really good and do a good job of making you feel like you're immersed into the environment. It just feels, each area feels like a different place. And that's one thing we've pointed out in other games that we've rated. It's like this, you're in a different area and you feel it. And I think that happens here in this game. So I thought that was really cool.
I agree. I think the environments look really nice. The one like weird little hang up I noticed, and I wonder if this is Switch exclusive to save on performance, but I noticed that like the backdrops of all the levels, like the skyboxes, they're just still images. So like in Galleon Galaxy, for example, like you're in this nebula space area, right? But like it's all just completely motionless, like just an image. And I was like, that's kind of weird. Like I feel like clouds should be moving and stuff. Did you notice that when you were playing?
I didn't actually notice that.
Huh.
I wouldn't think that they made such a drastic change just for the Switch version. So it's probably something I just didn't notice. But if I didn't notice, that's also, pretty clever of them. I think that sounds like an old school tactic. Like,
yeah, no, like it 1000% is, which is why I thought it was weird. Yeah.
I think they're very old when it comes to programming these games, like old classic style, like old. It's like you don't have to do that anymore, but they did. So.
Yeah. This is also sort of a nitpick, and this might actually be more of a Switch problem because I do know from reading that some visual effects were toned down or removed for the Switch, which I understand. But some areas had very like flat looking lighting. This happened a lot in Capital B, or in Hivory Towers, the hub world. This happened a lot here, where like some areas just the lighting would just look really like flat and everything would be gray and like it didn't look dynamic at all. Which like that was the only time where I felt that the game like actually looked ugly, would be like in those instances.
Really?
But I feel that didn't really happen too much in the main levels, which is the most important part of the game. So it's not like it's not a game killer for me, but it was like definitely a moment where it's like, oh, this doesn't look very good.
Yeah, that's weird. I never really experienced that. For the most part, the lighting was pretty good on my end. Well, I don't really have too much else to say about visuals other than they're pretty decent, not super exceptional.
I do have some more comments, and this is I also doubt this would be a Switch exclusive hang up. So maybe you'll have noticed this, but I just feel like a lot of the animations in the game just completely lack polish. And I'll give some examples. So like one of the very first like flaws in the game I noticed is that I was like testing out my tongue move. Ooh. And I was testing out my tongue. Oh, we also forgot to mention that wow, there's so much stuff to talk about this game. We forgot to mention in gameplay that Yooka can use his tongue to like get health and get like items that give him special powers for limited time and all this stuff.
And
so the point is you can shoot your tongue out.
For special favors for some other people's.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, this animation that Yooka does, like his head kind of juts forward a bit and his mouth opens and his tongue comes out, but the rest of his body stays like completely still. Yeah. It's the weirdest looking thing. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and that would turn out to be the first of many instances of like animations just looking half-assed or just like bad. Another example is that in the first level, there's this like shooting gallery type area where you're talking to this corplet, this enemy, but he's like a special one. And he's like, oh, shoot down all the targets. And when you shoot the targets, they just like disappear. Mm-hmm. And there's like maybe a little like glowing effect or something, but otherwise they just disappear. Like they don't explode or anything. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this? Like,
yeah.
And I don't want to go on and on because this is already running long for a podcast, but like it just, that happens all the time. And I'm like, what is the problem? Like, and that's probably like the single biggest thing that makes the game feel rushed is like something as simple as like, oh, like make this thing explode. Like it's 2017. It's not very hard. It's like, I don't know, man. Like that just adds up.
Yeah, I agree. Now that you mention that, I agree. And it's not really in true Rare fashion either. You would think that Rare, they spend a lot of time in the older games, perfecting these things, and to have all these tools available in this day and age, and to kind of really drop the ball on that is kind of sad. So, yeah.
Well, these guys ain't Rare anymore, technically speaking. So
true. It's like half, but
yeah.
Anyway, now that I'm sad about that, you got anything else for visuals?
No, just my score.
What is that score?
That score is also a 7T.
7T.
Yeah.
I think I was a little more optimistic. I gave a lot of points to the level, like the way the levels looked and the character models and stuff like that. The animation does give me some pause, but I think overall it's a good enough game for an 81.
Yeah, visuals was really hard for me to rate. I think your 81 is definitely reasonable, but like, or for me, the conflict was like, I think the character designs are great. I think the environments mostly look great, but like the animation, lack of polish in many regards, just like that made me frustrated, and like I could not stop like noticing it.
Yeah, it's a hard one to rate for sure.
Yeah, and like overall, I would say that I wasn't impressed, and I think there was a lot of room for improvement. So I think a 70 is also reasonable.
Cool, I agree. Moving on to the audio. I think it's actually pretty good for this game. I wouldn't say it's the greatest sounding game ever, but our boy Grant, you know, your homie, I think he did some solid work in this game, along with David Wise. I'd actually argue it's the best part about the game is the music. I think it's pretty good. Like I said, I don't think it's one of the most amazing soundtracks I've ever heard, but you can definitely tell it's them and pays a lot of homage to the older, like DK64 and Banjo. Tooie, actually, there's a lot of Tooie I heard in there, and Kazooie as well. So I think they're pretty good. The sounds are kind of meh. It's not as good as Banjo, and I don't know why. I know they tried, you can tell they tried, but it's just like some of the sounds just weren't as fun as the other ones. They were kind of just weird for me. They didn't sound too right, but I could be biased. It sounds like I'm biased.
I think that might be bias. And like in this particular instance, I think it might be bias.
It sounds like it's biased. I just like the tongue slurping thing just doesn't sound as good as or Riga. I don't know. They're just more iconic to me, right?
Through.
They're just a lot more. I don't know what's missing there for me, but it's something.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that I wanted it to be that way, right? I wanted this game to be just as good. I just didn't find it as good, so I don't know what it is.
Well, I want to respond to your comments both about the music and the sounds, but I'll start with music.
Sure.
I agree that I think audio is the strongest part of this game, which unfortunately isn't like the biggest praise in the world.
Right.
I am just a little disappointed in the music, though. As much as I will fanboy about Grant Kirkhope all day, and David Wise is no slouch either. He is responsible for example, the aquatic ambiance track from Donkey Kong Country. That like everyone has remixed. But the music in this game, I feel like it was definitely catchy. Like when I was playing the game, I would start humming, and I never got too tired of any of the tracks. But I just like the minute I walked away, I just like could not remember how anything went.
Yeah.
Except for the Capital Casino level, which actually was my least favorite soundtrack. It just had this awkward sort of feeling about it that made me remember it, but like not in a good way. And so that's the only track that I can like hum for people or sing for people, and I won't. So don't turn up your volume or anything. But and this is a problem with the whole game, but I feel like this is the part where it impacted me the most specifically, is that the music just sounds so reminiscent of those older games that like it's distracting for me. It's like I swear this sounds like it came straight out of Banjo or like straight out of DK, and it's like I don't know, but like it's good music. It's just not like different. It's not the first time I've heard it, so it's not like cool anymore. You know what I mean? Like
it's like
you wouldn't to say that, but
yeah, you wouldn't want like one of your favorite artists to come out with another album that sounds exactly like the last album, right?
Yeah,
you're like, well, I already why. And that's kind of what it did feel like. I will say, though, that Katie, when she was watching me play it, she was like, she kept hearing the tune of Casino, and she was like, oh, yeah, and she kept like humming along to it and singing it. So I guess that says something, right?
Yeah.
But maybe for us, it's like, oh, this sounds exactly like X, right? So
yeah,
I think that might be a problem.
It's also nice, though, that this game gave us the opportunity to hear like a Banjo-Kazooie style Grant Kirkhope composition in like HD sound with like, actual
Yeah.
recordings and, not like, not with the limitations of the N64, basically, is what I'm saying. So that's pretty cool. And he's also done a lot of work since Banjo, obviously, so it's not like the only time we've heard him make music recently, but it's probably the only time he's made like Banjo-Kazooie inspired music recently. So that is pretty cool that we get to hear that. On the sound effects, I like the sound effects. I don't think they're particularly like great or necessarily better or as good as Banjo. So I kind of agree with you there. I do like the character grunts though. Definitely like the most iconic sound from, or the sound like approach from Banjo.
Yeah.
Is the dialogue going like, I consistently found myself laughing at capital B's like,
Yeah.
and also Kartos going like, yo, yo, ho, yo, ho, yo.
Yeah.
It's like super funny actually. So I do give points there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like the other sound effects were just kind of goofy and like whatever. So
Yeah, I agree. Yooka and Laylee weren't actually too outstanding, I gotta say. For being the main characters, their voices weren't like too great. Like Laylee was kind of too like too airy, right? So it's like you could hardly hear Laylee's voice.
I kind of liked Laylee's voice actually. I think her voice is stronger than Yuka's. I don't dislike either of them, but I feel like Yuka's or Laylee's, the Bat's character, is stronger because like it's kind of funny. I think the combination of her like yeah like combined with all the snarky stuff she says to everyone, so like it kind of fits. I think.
I kind of want to stop us right here because this is a weird debate we're having. If you just think about it contextually, we're like arguing, like debating, like voices, and we're like trying to act them out. And the audience probably has no idea what we're talking about.
The audience loves this shit. Press 1 if you love this shit. Leave a comment, like and subscribe. Go to Twitter, spam our Twitter. But yes, we can move on from this particular conversation.
I thought it was funny to point out. I mean, we can keep going on it. It was kind of funny.
There is a Yooka rap that was made,
yeah.
I think as a stretch goal to pay homage to the DK rap. I watched it today. I definitely cringed the whole time.
Yeah, it's bad.
People probably also cringed a little bit when the DK rap came out, but like this one I think is just worse.
It's so
It is bad.
Come on, guys. Come on.
But I think it's cool that they made it at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's about all I got for the audio.
Man. Great review this game is getting.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, yeah, let's see. You gave your rating for the last one first, so I'll give my rating on this one. I gave it a hot, fresh, wiggity whack 84.
It's pretty good, yo. I was not quite so favorable. I gave it a 75.
75. All right. I could see that. I could see both sides. Moving on to content.
Cone tent.
So, Pete Boy, why don't you take it away?
Sure. Content, I have a lot to say about this. I feel that content overall is one of the weakest parts of the game, and I will explain why in a bit. But first of all, I will say that it took me almost exactly 15 hours to beat my any percent run of the game, which is a pretty good amount of time. I was happy to get that number because I looked up howlongtobeat.com, Yooka-Laylee, and it said 15 hours, so I guess I'm right on the money. Funnily enough. So there's 5 main worlds, each of which you can expand once, so that kind of extends the gameplay. And I could see the argument that maybe 5 levels isn't enough, but to be honest, like, because the gameplay is not great, I don't think I could have stood much more
God. Yeah.
than the 15 hours that I played.
So the content is better because the gameplay is so bad.
Yeah, the short length is better. Man, I fucking marathoned this game. Like the last day I played it for like 9 hours because I did all of the expansions and got my 100 jiggies or pages and slammed my head against the wall fighting capital B, and then I was like, okay, good, it's all done. I got it all out of the way. Tomorrow I can do whatever else I want to do. Not to worry about this dang game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which makes me sound like I hate it, which I don't, but
You don't love it.
I think it felt like a chore more often than not, and that's not good.
No. Yeah, so it's kind of weird. I remember starting out this game being like, okay, I got to collect all these things, I got to do everything. And I remember Banjo very vividly. In Banjo, you basically have to collect everything. There's not as much collectibles, but you have to collect everything. So when I'm going through these levels, I'm like, I have to get everything. And so, like, I'll go through the first level, and I just have so much, like, feathers and pages to go into the next level, and that would just kind of continue on. I almost 100%, like, the first 3 levels. And then I got to Casino, and that one I just hated. And I still got a fair amount of pages there. I got, like, 19.
Damn, I only got, like, 11 there, and then I pieced the fuck out.
And so then I went to Galleon Galaxy, and I'm like, all right, I know this is, because I looked up how many levels there were, because I wanted to know how far I was from beating the game, but Galleon Galaxy, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this one, and I'm going to collect all of these, and then I can go to, Capital B's thing. And so then I got, like, maybe, like, 2 pages, and they're like, all right, you're ready to go fight Capital B, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, you mean I don't have to get a lot of the stuff? I forgot that at one point they had told me you needed to collect 100 pages. So it was like this weird thing where I was like, I thought I was in it for the long haul, and then, like, all of a sudden, like, there's just this rapid advancement straight to the boss. It's like this awkward, like, oh, you're ready to go fight him now. Oh, really? Okay. It wasn't like that in, like, the other games, right? Banjo and all that stuff. It was like you had to work your way back up to Gruntilda or whatever, and pretty much beat most of the game. Whereas this one, I guess that's nice because it was kind of annoying to beat most of the game. But here it was like this weird pace of like, oh, most of my hours were spent just collecting a lot of shit in the first 3 levels, and then like towards the end, it was like, oh, you're good, you're fine, you don't have to worry about the rest of the game. It's like, oh, okay, I guess that's okay.
Yeah, and I guess that's just part of the fairly non-linear approach that the game allows you to take. Because for me, I went through and like I basically got 10 pages from every level, and then I went back and then expanded all of them and just kind of did that whole thing. Because I didn't want to like, I was getting really tired of the levels by the time I got 10 pages, so I was like, I'll just come back to it. I don't want to marathon all of them.
It's kind of funny though, if you think about it, there's 5 levels, right?
Right.
And 25 pages per level. You could get 0 pages on the last level.
Yeah, you could.
You could skip that level entirely. It's kind of weird.
And then the devs would be very sad.
Yeah.
I think that the levels, they generally feel really empty, which I think was true to an extent in the predecessor games. But in this game in particular, like, they feel like everything's really spread out, which I don't think was really necessary. I guess it helps make things feel grand and immersive, but like how immersed can you feel when there's like nothing for you to do other than traverse land and beat up enemies that really don't matter?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it has to do with like the characters just weren't as substantial, like in terms of their personality and their movement. Like even in Banjo-Tooie, like there would be a lot of cutscenes, and this one, the cutscenes, if they had any, were just weird and like stupid. But
yeah,
Banjo-Kazooie, it was spaced out very well, right? That's the one that gets a lot of praise because it is very concise, especially in its level design, right? Because it's like all together, but you're having to maneuver around the level and talk to different people and do different things to like immerse yourself into the level. Whereas this one is just like, all right, let me go trekking across this level, like this wide open area of just nothing, especially Casino. We keep harping on this level, but there's literally just floor of nothing that you're crossing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, all right.
I think one of the things that makes these levels feel so empty also is that there's like an astonishing lack of variety in the enemies that you'll find in every level. Like there's the corplets, which are little like just creatures that kind of try to mob you. Like they look different in every level. They're kind of skinned per level, but the ones that are stronger just literally have like a little captain hat on them, and they just take 2 hits, and that's the only difference. And it's like they don't even attack different. They just take another hit.
Yeah.
So, like, that's one type of enemy. There's a floating bee that will shoot stuff at you. That's another type of enemy. There's little, like, robots that will shoot lasers, which have the dumbest hitbox, by the way.
Yeah, I agree.
And, that's another type. But basically, like, all told, there's, like, 5 different types of enemies across this entire goddamn game. You compare that to, obviously, Banjo-Kazooie, and, like, every level has, like, all these distinct types of enemies. Like, the sea level has crabs and, like, some other... frogs and stuff. And, like, well, you'd be better to make this particular point because you've played Banjo more.
Snowmen
but, like, even
that throw snowballs at you.
Yeah, yeah, those guys. And, like, what else? In the desert level, like, what kind of enemies would you have?
There's the guy that comes out of the ground. I forgot his name. He, like, grabs you.
Grabba, yeah. Yeah. Like, there's all these cool, distinct enemies that, like, make sense with their environment. But here, that's, like, it's just absolutely insane to me how few enemies there are. It's like, what the fuck, man? Like, you had every opportunity in the world to, like, take these beautiful character designs that you did for, like, everyone else, minus Vendy. I'm saying that for your benefit. And then make enemies. And it's like, that's the other thing that makes this game feel really rushed, like, and just not polished and not.
Yeah, it's like it's like they took the game, and I know you can do this with a game engine. You could just build a character and all of its data, and you could just take it and drop it places, and they all do the same thing. It's just you take their data and you drop them, and that's what they did. They just dropped various little dudes all over the map.
Yep.
And same thing with the kind of the level design too. They just kind of not all of them. A lot of the level design actually is pretty good, but for Casino, I'm gonna keep harping on that one. It's like they just kind of put stuff there, and you're just
like here's 5 slot machines because we can't think of anything better.
Right.
You know, like
they're like, what's in a casino again? Dice. Let's make huge dice. Let's just make huge dice
that don't like do anything. Yeah. Many of the challenges, I said this earlier in gameplay, that like it never felt too repetitive necessarily, except in Casino. Bada bing, bada boom, this level sucks. Many of the challenges, they just felt like too boring or too hard, like one or the other.
Yeah.
And if they weren't too hard, then they were too long, and things being long is artificial difficulty, really. The best example of this probably for me is the race against Nimble, the Cloud, in Galleon Galaxy, where you have to be the boats and race around the whole damn level, it feels like, to get a Pagey from her. And like this race lasts like 4 minutes or something, which is a really long time to be going that slow in such an empty looking level. And what sucks is that there's one particular part near the end where like it's not signposted in a very clear way, so I went the wrong way. And then I'm like, oh, am I going the wrong way? So I turn around and then I see Nimble like 5 miles ahead of me. I'm like, oh shit, well that's 4 minutes of my life I'm not going to get back.
Right.
And that's just a pattern too, like with the Rextro games, I talked about this earlier. They just go on for way too long for how simple they are. And it's like, just learn how to pace, you know?
Yeah. I think thinking about it from a game design perspective, it's like the player loses their sense of progression. It's like you spend so long in this one level or doing this one thing, and you feel like you're not progressing, so the player gets bored. Like you're just sitting there and you're traversing the world, and you're just like, okay, one, there's not enough personality here to keep me entertained while I'm traversing this world. 2, I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere because I've been in the same damn level for over an hour, and I just want to leave because I want something new.
Yeah.
Because nothing feels new. So it's that. Banjo-Tooie kind of had that problem too. While Banjo-Tooie had a lot more personality in terms of what you do in the game, like you could be a giant T-Rex and there's several places to go, but you stay in one level for a very long time, and sometimes you have to traverse back to other levels and you lose your sense of progression. So I think that's something that's very important here, is that, you know, the player wants to feel like they're getting somewhere and they're exploring and discovering new things, and that's one thing this game suffers from.
Yeah, I mean, I think they try to alleviate that by giving you the option to leave the level you're in at any time and then go spend pages to open a new level or expand one that you already have. But the problem with that is that the game just isn't fun enough to make me want to like have to come back to a level later. You know what I mean? Generally I was like, I want to get a bunch done here and then leave and then only come back like once I really need to.
Right.
And so then like I still fell into that pattern that you just described. So it's like, well, that ended up not really working. I do want to talk briefly about the story. I did mention it earlier about how Capital B takes these pages. You have to go get him back. It's not clear what he's going to do with it, but it's going to be bad, blah, blah, blah. There is a reveal at the end of the game. They reveal that Capital B is not actually like the tippity top head honcho. You know, he answers to a board of directors or like stakeholders or whoever who actually don't appear in the game. I thought they might appear if you 100% of the game, like you might get a new boss battle, but it turns out they don't. So don't really feel the need to waste your time getting all the pages if you don't want to. I'm glad I didn't miss out anything there.
Do you know what happens when you do 100% the game?
You get a new tonic or two, right? You get a new tonic or two, and one of them like has Yuka wearing his underpants that are flying from the mast of the ship. And like that's cool. The tonic. And then there's another one that I don't remember.
Too bad you can only have one tonic at a time.
So yeah, definitely not worth it. But like my problem with the story though is that like it's so vague, like what this book means to Laylee, like why does she have a magical book? We don't know. Capital B says he's going to rewrite the universe, and it's like, okay, so probably for your benefit, but like what's it going to be? Like you're just saying, oh, I'm going to change the world, but for evil. And it's like, okay, well that means nothing until you tell me what you're going to do. And also like I know that in Banjo-Kazooie, the story is that you have to go save your sister, Tootie. Is that her name?
Yeah, Tootie. Basically, Grunty is stealing Tootie's cuteness.
Yeah.
And becomes this hot babe.
Which is, like, really cool, and she's really sexy, and I could watch that, game over screen over and over.
Right.
But that's it's taking the trope of saving somebody, but, like, making it cute and making it fun and making it interesting. And here there's like no motivation because they don't explain what the fuck is happening or why anyone's here or what they're going to do. All you know is that you're a good guy fighting a bad guy. And it doesn't help that like Yuka just so easily goes along with everything. He's like, oh, sure, we'll help you. Oh, sure, we'll help you. And Laylee, like, at least she's there to provide some sort of sarcastic comments. But even that gets old after a while. I don't know. It's just not interesting.
Yeah. It's sad. It's really all sad.
Yeah. The sense of humor in the game, like, is there, and sometimes it is really funny. Like, there's a couple parts where I was like, haha.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, like, several times I was like, oh, that's a sex joke. But,
yeah.
But, yeah, overall, the story is just kind of like... And, it's never been, like, too much of a focus of these games, right? They're never like, oh, this story is, like, super in-depth. But,
yeah,
to your point, they don't give a lot of good explanation as to what's really going on, and you kind of like you're like there's not really a purpose here, whereas Banjo you're like I gotta go freaking save my sister. I remember when I was playing Banjo when I was younger, I was like, oh, I wonder where Tootie is or what's going to happen with Tootie. This one I don't have any curiosity as to what's going to happen with the book. I was like, I guess I'll just fight Capital B when I get there.
Yeah, I agree. Like, these games have never been really about the story, but like that's just one more piece of motivation that I do not have to slog through the gameplay.
But you did.
But I did. Like a champ. I did it for the fans, because I have integrity.
Look at the fucking pace!
And also I wanted to see what the boss fight was like, and I'm actually glad I did. I am satisfied that I beat it, but I will not do again.
Yeah.
Speaking of beating the game, the credits, they included like every single Kickstarter backer.
Yeah.
And they provided a like fast forward option, which turns out does not help because there's like that list of backers goes on forever. Like it took me probably 3 minutes to get through all of the errands. And that's 2 A's. That's an A and then another A. So after that, it's like Abraham, and then it's Adam, and then it's Alan, and then it's Alyssa. And I'm like, holy fucking shit. I would really love to try to like see if my boy K-Slugs is in there, which I don't know if you backed the game or not. Did you?
I couldn't remember. I was like, I feel like I did or wanted to, but I know for a fact Gareth is in it. My friend G-Rabbit from Smash in CStat.
Yeah,
I know he's in there because I looked him up. I remember doing that, but I looked and I'm not in there, so I guess I didn't do it.
Yeah, but it's just crazy. I mean, this isn't like a critique against the game, but it would have been cool if you could like skip to a letter or something, I guess, because it's just crazy.
Yeah,
I mostly just wrote it down like for fun. Like it's just crazy how many backers there were, and that they put all of them in the credits. That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, how cool would it be to say, "Hey, I'm in the credits of this video game"? Like,
yeah,
that's cool.
And then how uncool would it be to say, yeah, you have to hold the fast forward button for 10 minutes, like literally 10 minutes. You don't have to hold the button, but you do have to wait there. So.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that does it for content.
What a rant.
Yeah, you kind of got heated there, but yeah. I digress. I will give my rating for content, and then you can follow it up. What do you think I gave it? What's your guess here?
I'm gonna guess a 75-ish.
Not too far off. I gave it an 81.
Oh.
It wasn't horrible. I think they put a lot of effort into putting a lot of content in the game. It's almost as if they just crammed the content in. So it was really hard for me to rate. But I think overall, I don't want to dog them too much because I know they put a lot of effort into putting a lot of extra content in the game that really we haven't talked about. We could talk about for a long time, but that's why I gave it that score.
I think that makes sense. My opinion is pretty different, though, or my score is at least. I gave it a cold, stale 65.
Damn.
I was not feeling it. I felt like the content was actually worse than the gameplay. Just like how empty everything felt. The lack of enemies was really a sticking point for me, and which you could probably tell from when I was talking about it. Yeah, like one of my points was overall the game felt like a chore more often than not, and that's like a cardinal fucking sin for a video game because that's the last thing you want your game to feel like. So
you know what, Peter? You've convinced me. Even after I've given my rating, I think I'm.
Oh shit!
I think I'm going to change my rating to we'll give it a 77. How's that?
It's up to you, man. I mean,
yeah, let's do a 77 because you're right. It does feel empty a lot of times, and I don't think I counted against that enough. So. With that said, let's get into our number crunching.
We're going to crunch some very sad numbers today.
For real.
Hello, and welcome back to the Shit on Yooka-Laylee show. My name is Deal For Real. This is K-Slugs. For as much of a verbal lashing as we gave this game, our score actually isn't all that terrible. I will recap with my scores. I gave gameplay a 70. I gave visuals a 70 also. Audio, I gave a 75, which brings my aesthetics to a 72.5. And content, I gave a 65. So altogether, my score is 69.2.
Dang, there we go.
There we go.
That's what I like to see. In true fashion, my gameplay is a 69.
Mm-hmm.
My visuals...
Is it ever?
My visuals are 81. My audio was 84. I believe that brings my rating to a 82.5 for aesthetics.
I would believe so.
And then content is 77, which brings my overall score to a 76.2. Averaging our scores together for the IG score, we get a 72.7, the 26th game out of 27 in our list. But you know what? Not too bad for it. It didn't go below 70, so maybe that's an accomplishment in itself. And it's pretty in line with the Metacritic scores. And it's good for us to have some of these games that are a little bit lower on the scale because we haven't only had 2 games under 80. So it's kind of a nice refresher, or it's kind of a nice feeling to have a game that's not either a B or an A.
Yeah. I was telling Kevin the other day that I, in particular, am spoiled by like pretty much only playing top quality, polished AF Nintendo games, which they are known for, and also indie games that are like the best indie games, like Stardew and Celeste. And once again, like our score of 72.7 is not. I mean, that's not a bad rating, really. It's just that we often review games that we already know that we really love or something.
Right.
And then also another thing too is that this game was just hyped like you wouldn't believe.
Right.
And
yeah, that's a good point.
For this game to just fail like really badly on just a few parts, because again, the whole game isn't bad. It's like mainly some parts of it that are like just not good at all. And so that just really brings down the whole impression and leaves a sour taste in everyone's mouth. I mean, basically, we were promised the world and we got Pluto.
Yeah.
So like
nobody wants Pluto.
Yeah, I mean Pluto's cool and all that, but you're not gonna go visit Pluto over and over again. You're gonna go there once and see the ice, see the aliens, and you're going to come back and you'll be done with it.
Yeah.
Having said all that, I do think that if you are nostalgic for this type of game, I do think it's worth a shot. It's not a full price $60 game, so you're not going to break the bank with it.
All right.
Which actually, I got it on sale, and I'm happy about that.
Be very happy now.
Yeah, so yeah, like, go ahead and give it a try. It's not for everyone, but some people really like it, and some people really hate it. Some people give it harsher scores than we did, for sure. Yeah, it's really the type of game where you just got to try it and see what you think.
I would say if you're a Rare fan, you definitely need to try this game out. Just to see, I don't know, just out of curiosity's sake.
It'll give you a newfound appreciation of the older games.
Exactly. You know what? That's a good point.
Also, I want to briefly talk about this thing that you and I mentioned earlier on a text message or something, is that a lot of professionals were critiquing or criticizing this game by saying that the genre is outdated and just bad.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we agree that that's not the case.
Yeah.
It's just that this game just didn't do a good job of representing the genre.
I agree. It was supposed to be the rebirth of the genre is what people were claiming it to be. They're like, okay, it's going to bring back this genre. People are going to love it. And we've seen that, despite Yooka-Laylee's failures, not too long after, you have Mario Odyssey, you have remakes of these classic 3D platformer games. I think like Crash Bandicoot and stuff like that, Spyro. Yeah. They've all done pretty well. So I think it's pretty clear that this game just didn't deliver. A lot of people were claiming that, it's just the genre didn't hold up like it used to. It's like, no, it just wasn't done well. And it wasn't done right. And it's a shame that so many people backed this in hopes that it would be everything that they wanted, the fan service that they deserved. But sadly, it just wasn't. Yeah.
We'll just have to pay them 2.1 million British pounds and get a better game. There is a spin-off game coming out.
Oh, yeah. I was about to actually talk about that.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't enough that they didn't meet the fans' needs, they promised a Yooka-Laylee. Well, they didn't promise it, but they've alluded to a Yooka-Laylee ever since Yooka-Laylee came out. Basically to expound upon the game and even make it better. They're like, we're not done with Yooka-Laylee. And so everybody's expecting something better since they know they got a lot of backlash on this game. Well, they come out with a 2D platformer version of this and everybody's like, what? This isn't in line with what we wanted at all, right? I mean, sure, you can have a 2D platformer, and that's not even a 2D platformer, is it?
It kind of is. I think it is. It's like a Donkey Kong Country Returns kind of thing, I thought.
Yeah. Anyway, people were like confused. They're like, "What? Like, we want the 3D, but like not shitty version of it." So I don't know. It's just kind of they're missing the mark all over the place, and it's just really sad to see because I wanted the best for them, and everybody was hoping the best for them. But I feel like they've just kind of squandered their opportunities.
Yeah, maybe like all the gameplay related devs are the ones who are not at Playtonic, and it's all like the aesthetics people that are there. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, maybe.
I have one very fast little like fun fact,
sure.
And you may have noticed this when you were playing. In Hivory Tower is one of the pages that's floating around. It's pretty funny actually. The gimmick is that you go to release him from the cage, but he's like, "You'll never catch me," and starts flying around. And you have to like time your jump really carefully to get him. And once you get him, you say, "This isn't the last you've seen of me. Crazy Kirkhope will rise again." And like that's the name of the pagey. And like, oh, that's funny.
No, I didn't actually see that one.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Crazy Kirkhope.
Oh wait, no, I did see that one. Yeah, I did. I know what you're talking about now. I was thinking like where capital B was, but
no.
Anyway, yeah, that's pretty cool. Shout out to our boy Grant. Anyway, I think that's enough. Yeah, it's enough of this shit. Let's stop harping on this.
Enough of this. Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone. I know it's been pretty much just us hating on this game, but it's a nice change of pace for you guys, I think. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. Shout outs to our patrons: Katie Davis, Mallory Sutton, Ryan Everett, Seth Webb, Simon Webb, and our boy Z-Link, aka Chris Machuga. We definitely appreciate you guys supporting us. You guys are the best. You keep us going. You know who you are.
We do this for you.
Mwah.
I spent 1 hour of my very precious time fighting that B-ass son of a bitch over and over again. And what did I get? I got a credit scene that I couldn't even watch all the way through because the thing's fucking 10 miles long. Grant Kirkhope, why did you do this to me?
Oh, man. Come on, Grant.
Anyway, when we're not complaining about Yooka-Laylee, we are tweeting about other random fun game crap. You can find our Twitter on at the IG_cast. Our website is theigcast.com. And as always, we're working on some projects that we're going to show you guys soon, and we think you will like them. Mm-hmm. But we just like to tease you, string you along.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we got more episodes coming up in season 3. We got some exciting things on the horizon in terms of the season. Over the horizon. Chris is triggered. Chris has turned off the podcast.
Probably.
Or turned up the volume. You never know.
Never know.
Is that everything?
That's it. I think we've bored our fans long enough. So
hell yeah.
So thanks for listening, and we'll see you later. Love you too, guys.
Love you too.